What would you do if you discovered that the signs of your final awakening had already begun, and you didn't even notice? Every second you remain blind to these signs is a second in which your own soul pulls away from you. Today, once and for all, you will finally see every secret signal your soul has been sending as it tries to tear you out of illusion and lead you into what Rumi described as the point of no spiritual return. If you continue, you will understand why these signs are exploding inside you, what they actually mean, and why ignoring them now would be the greatest betrayal of your own soul. Are you ready to face the truth that the world as you knew it is already over for you, and that nothing and no one will save you from the need to cross this portal alone? If you don't feel that pressure, that burning urgency consuming you from within, then maybe your soul isn't waking up yet. Or is it screaming and you're just refusing to listen? You think you're just watching another video, but you're not. Nothing that's happening right now is ordinary. The soul does not choose by accident. It only places you in front of certain words when something inside you has already begun to crack. And that's exactly what you're feeling. A silent yet brutal calling that doesn't ask for permission, doesn't ask for time, and doesn't wait for your courage. It just pulls. It pulls as if you were being torn out of an old layer that can no longer hold you. And if you're here, it's because your soul is feeling the signs of the final awakening, that point of no return Rumi spoke about, the moment when you can no longer go back to who you were, because you've already touched a truth that unraveled everything. Write in the comments, "I feel the signs of the final awakening," and become a channel member to receive the deepest teachings of Sufism. What you're feeling isn't confusion, it isn't anxiety, it isn't a crisis. It's the friction between who you always believed you were and who you actually are. That internal collision is the first sign of the final awakening. Rumi said that when the soul gets close to truth, life begins to feel out of place, as if existence were pushing you toward a portal you never asked for, but cannot deny. And that's exactly what this is. You're not choosing to awaken. You're being awakened. The final awakening never arrives as a gentle gift. It comes as a surgical removal, ripping away false layers, old masks, and stories you repeat just to feel safe. And that's why it hurts, because the soul doesn't want you to remain a small version of yourself. It wants to break the shell to reveal what was always hidden, that strange weight out of nowhere, that feeling that you no longer fit in the world, that everything has lost its color. That's not spiritual depression. That is the second sign of awakening, disidentification. Sufism teaches that before the light enters, everything untrue loses its shine. Your soul begins withdrawing your energy from things you thought mattered, preparing you for what truly matters. That's why you feel distant. It's not escape, it's transition. It's as if God were pulling you by the back of the neck out of the illusion you still insist on calling your normal life. Another deep sign, and one few people have the courage to admit, is the sense of inner rupture. As if something inside you were breaking, as if a door were being pushed outward, ready to burst. Rumi called this the soul's pain that breaks the shell. When the final awakening begins, the soul can no longer tolerate living trapped in the ego, and it pushes, presses, forces. It is a strange pain, a mixture of loss, fear, and clarity. This is where many people run away. But you didn't. You made it this far. That means the process is already too active to be stopped. You've probably noticed another sign as well. Your sensitivity has increased. Small things affect you more deeply, both the good and the painful. This is the heart reactivating. Sufism teaches that the spiritual heart, the qalb, when awakened, vibrates at a frequency higher than ordinary emotion. You begin to feel the world with more depth, as if perceiving hidden layers, intentions, lies, truths, energies. Suddenly nothing feels superficial. You see beyond, you feel beyond. This is not weakness, it's spiritual vision emerging, tearing through the fog. Another decisive sign. You've started questioning everything, not out of rebellion, but out of clarity. This is the collapse of narrative. When the soul touches the light of the final awakening, it begins dismantling every story you told yourself just to keep living. I'm like this. My life is like this. There's no way out. All of that begins to fall apart. You start to see that none of it was true. It was conditioning, fear, and accumulated memory. Uncomfortable, yes, but liberating. Rumi said, "When the soul awakens, it destroys what is false, before revealing what is real. And that's exactly what is happening to you. Another sign that you're closer to the final awakening than you think is spiritual loneliness. Not feeling alone, but feeling separate from the world, as if you were watching everything from a distance, as if every conversation felt shallow, as if no one around you was ready to hear what you feel. This does not mean something is wrong. It means your soul is pulling you out of the collective layer to place you in your true frequency. Spiritual loneliness is the hallway before the portal. Those who don't understand this moment turn back, but those who cross are never the same. There is also a sign almost no one talks about: inner silence. Not the absence of thought, the absence of noise in the soul. Even if your mind is confused, something inside you has become still. A part of you simply watches, senses, anticipates. This silence is the eye of the soul opening. In Sufism, we call it hearing what has no sound. It's the first time you realize there is a consciousness inside you that is not your mind, not your ego, not your identity. It is your true essence, observing everything calmly because it already knows the truth you haven't yet been able to accept. And then comes the strongest sign of all, the sense of return. As if you were coming back to something you don't remember, but you know. As if you were rediscovering something that has always belonged to you, but you had forgotten. This is the final sign before the portal. The final awakening is not learning something new, it is remembering. Rumi said the soul does not awaken toward the future. It awakens to what it has always been. That's why you feel that strange spiritual nostalgia, as if arriving home after centuries. It's not imagination, it's soul memory. And when this memory begins returning, your life reorganizes itself without you asking. People drift away, opportunities appear from nowhere, doors slam shut, paths unfold unexpectedly. It looks like chaos, but it's spiritual order. Your soul is clearing the ground to place you where you need to be. Every loss, every rupture, every sudden change, all of it is alignment. None of it is random. You're not being punished, you're being prepared. And now that you're recognizing all these signs, something even deeper begins. The hunger for truth, not just any truth. The truth that touches the center of your being, the one that burns, transforms, opens, tears. And this hunger is the final marker that the awakening is active. Anyone who feels this hunger can never go back to sleep. No matter how much time passes, no matter what happens, the soul keeps calling. Calling until you cross. So now I ask you, do you understand what this means? Do you see that everything you've lived until now was preparing you for this exact moment? Do you see that none of this is happening by accident? That every sensation, every pain, every rupture is pointing in the same direction? Do you see that the more you try to escape, the more your soul pulls you back? What do you think this reveals about the place you're being led to? There is a sign almost no one notices, yet it marks a point of no return in the final awakening. The feeling that life is watching you. This is not paranoia, it is spiritual perception. When the awakening begins to intensify, you start sensing that everything around you responds to you in strange ways, as if every situation were designed to push you inward. It feels as though the world becomes less solid, less rigid, more symbolic. This shift is not psychological, it is the soul opening the second vision. Rumi taught that when the true heart awakens, reality stops being a backdrop and becomes a teacher. Every conversation feels loaded with hidden meaning. Every coincidence calls to you, every repetition nudges you. This is a sign that appears only to those near the crossing. The world begins to speak to you without a voice. Another brutal and heavily ignored sign of the final awakening is the sudden loss of interest in arguments, debates, and meaningless conflicts. Not because of social fatigue, but because your soul no longer has the energy to vibrate at the frequency of the ego. The soul begins disconnecting your participation in the human game. You simply can't pretend to care about what never mattered. This withdrawal is not discouragement. It is the natural collapse of identification. Sufism calls this dying before you die. It is the death of the noise that prevented you from hearing the calling of your essence. It is your soul refusing to remain in the world's theater because it is preparing for a leap only the awakened can make. Another sign, even stronger, appears when you begin feeling ahead of your own body, as if your consciousness has expanded too much to fit inside the normal rhythm of life. Sometimes it feels like urgency, sometimes like restlessness. But the real sensation is this: you've become larger than the life you're living. This mismatch between the size of your consciousness and the size of your routine is a spiritual alarm. It is the soul saying, you were not born to remain here. This is only the hallway. This is an advanced sign. It only appears when the soul is so close to the light that the body cannot keep up. There is also the sign of the loss of flavor for your own internal stories. Suddenly, thoughts that once dominated you lose their power. Fears that once controlled you weaken. Sorrows that once felt deep now feel weightless. This is not apathy, it is clarity. It is the soul dissolving the illusions that held your old identity together. In Sufism, this is called fana, the progressive dissolution of the false idea of self. When this happens, you begin to see that nothing you believed about yourself was truly you. And this is one of the deepest doors of the final awakening, realizing that your old self was never you. It was only accumulated dust. Another sign, perhaps the most dangerous for those who don't understand it, is the impulse to abandon everything. Not people or responsibilities, but old versions of yourself, old patterns, old paths. The soul begins pulling you away from everything that is no longer aligned with your deepest truth. This impulse comes as a force you cannot explain. Something inside you simply says, I can't anymore. You can't betray your own truth anymore. You can't pretend to be small anymore. You can't keep living below the vibration your soul demands. It feels as if the universe were pushing you toward the center of your own being, without negotiation. Then, one of the most hidden signs appears. A rise in lucidity about your own shadows. You begin to see, with almost cruel precision, every movement of your ego. You see your escapes, your fears, your masks, your patterns, your inner lies, and you can no longer hide from yourself. This is a sign of soul maturity. The light of the final awakening does not spare you. It exposes. It illuminates everything you tried to conceal, not to punish you, but to free you. Rumi said, the fire of truth burns first in the place where you try to hide, and that is what you're feeling. An inner exposure preparing your soul for the crossing. There is also a silent but devastating sign, the sense that you are being prepared. You don't know for what, you don't know when, but you feel it. It's as if every small detail of your life were part of an invisible choreography, as if something were being aligned without your awareness. This feeling does not appear for everyone. It appears only for those who are about to enter the deepest stage of awakening, the stage of recognition. Not intellectual recognition, but recognition of the true origin of your soul, as if the universe were adjusting you for a meeting scheduled long before you were born. And finally, the most advanced sign emerges, the sudden understanding that nothing you lived was a mistake. Nothing. Not the falls, not the traumas, not the losses, not the shame. It's as if, for the first time, you could see your own story from above, like a perfect design that was leading you to this exact moment. This type of vision is rare. It appears only when the soul is near the final door, because only a mature soul can look at its own pain without confusing itself with it. The awakened soul understands, I needed everything I lived to arrive here. And when this understanding comes, you know you've reached a point of no return. So now I ask you, if all these signs are manifesting in you, what is your soul trying to show you that you haven't had the courage to see? What exactly inside you is calling, insisting, pushing, even when you try to ignore it? And what do you think will happen when you finally stop resisting the awakening that has already begun? Another overwhelming sign appears when you begin to feel that life is teaching you too fast, as if everything that happens in your day has a hidden function, as if every detail is part of an invisible training. This is not spiritual paranoia, it is precision. The final awakening accelerates events because you're vibrating at a level where nothing is wasted. Everything is used to push you forward. In Sufism, this is called the hidden compass, the moment when God begins to guide your journey directly, firmly, and without interruption. And perhaps the most disturbing sign for those who do not understand is this. You begin to feel that ordinary life has become too small for the size of your soul, as if the world has shrunk, as if your routine has become too narrow, as if the limits that once looked huge now seem fragile, artificial, easy to cross. This is not delusion, it is spiritual expansion. When the soul approaches the final awakening, the consciousness becomes so large that the old life can no longer contain it. And you feel this without anyone needing to explain it. You feel it as a calling, a pressure, an opening about to happen. And now I ask you, if you're noticing these signs, if your soul is vibrating on this level, if your consciousness is opening this way, what exactly inside you is about to emerge? What truth are you so close to seeing? And what will happen when you finally cross the point your soul keeps pushing you toward? You are here because something inside you has begun to twist, like an ancient code waking up without asking for your permission. This is the first true sign of the final awakening. The soul starts acting before the mind understands. It's not emotion, it's not ordinary intuition, it's an inner movement that tears through the structure of yourself. And if you're feeling this, even subtly, you already know there's no turning back. The final awakening doesn't arrive softly. It arrives like an internal noise that disturbs you, as if an invisible boundary has been crossed. It's when you realize that nothing that once satisfied you can hold you anymore. Everything feels shallow, small, artificial, and this is not spiritual boredom. It's the soul pushing you out of illusion the way someone pulls a person out of a burning building. This discomfort isn't a flaw. It's the most violent sign that the inner eyes have begun to open, another sign you try to deny but already know is happening, the sudden collapse of the narrative you repeated about yourself. When you feel that you can no longer sustain certain thoughts, behaviors, or desires, it's not a loss of identity. It is the cracking of the shell that kept you asleep. The final awakening destroys the character first, only then revealing who was behind it. You feel this when you realize you can't lie to yourself anymore, and this isn't morality. It's the collapse of the persona. And perhaps the most aggressive sign, your consciousness begins to automatically reject anything that vibrates in falseness. People you once tolerated now drain you in seconds. Places you used to visit feel emotionally dead. Shallow conversations irritate you as if they were scraping your skin. Why? Because your soul has recognized that you no longer belong to the old field. It's like trying to breathe stale air after tasting pure oxygen. This aversion is not arrogance. It's a spiritual diagnosis. There is also the strange sensation of being pulled by something you still can't name. It isn't anxiety. It is summoning. The final awakening is a silent call that doesn't use words, but alters your body, your dreams, your focus, and even the rhythm of your thoughts. You feel that something is being prepared inside you, as if a hidden version of yourself were rising to the surface. And the more this movement grows, the more you realize you cannot ignore it, because ignoring hurts more than listening. And then comes the sign you try to hide from yourself, the uncomfortable suspicion that you always knew this moment would come. Always, since childhood, since before you understood concepts like spirituality, as if your soul carried a memory that is now returning, step by step, without asking your rational mind for permission. Why is it returning now? Why are you being called at this exact moment in your life? What is approaching that requires you to be awake, not asleep? And if this truly is the final awakening, why do you feel like something is still missing, waiting to be revealed? Why does the sensation grow every time you try to ignore it? And the most disturbing question of all, what exactly is your soul trying to show you that you still haven't had the courage to face? When the soul enters the final, everything that doesn't vibrate at your new frequency drifts away on its own. The final awakening removes what cannot sustain your expansion because you cannot move forward carrying energetic corpses. Then comes the deepest shift of all. You begin to feel that something inside you is preparing for a threshold, a portal, a point of no return. You don't know what it is. You don't know when it will happen. You only know it's coming, that it's inevitable, that your soul is positioning itself to cross something that will change absolutely everything. And as this process advances, you begin to realize that nothing you are feeling is random. Every sensation, every rupture, every intuition is part of a massive, silent, precise movement that is reorganizing who you are at the essence. It is not evolution, it is revelation, it is remembrance, it is a return to what was always hidden. And if all of this is happening inside you right now, why are you the one feeling all these signs at the same time? What exactly does your soul want you to awaken to before the next movement arrives? And most importantly, why do you feel that something even greater is coming? And why is it calling you so deeply at this exact moment? When the soul enters the final awakening, It begins tearing down internal structures you once swore were yours. They aren't. They're inherited layers, imposed, repeated, absorbed. And the first sign of this rupture is the brutal realization that everything you believed until now was only a sketch of your true consciousness. It feels like a crack opening inside you, separating what is yours from what was never yours. Another even sharper sign is the surge of existential urgency that appears without any logical reason. It's not anxiety, not fear, not restlessness. It's a summons. Something inside you screams for movement, for change, for truth. This happens because the final awakening does not allow stagnation. It demands that you walk through your own life as if it were a proving ground. Next, the soul creates a surgical discomfort around everything misaligned with your essence. People, habits, conversations, jobs, environments. Nothing goes unnoticed anymore. What was once tolerable becomes unbearable. What was once normal now feels toxic. This discomfort isn't a flaw, it's a diagnosis. The old you is dying. And then comes the violent sense that your energy refuses to be wasted any longer. You realize every thought, every gesture, every word carries weight. You begin to protect your life force as if it were gold, because it is. This is one of the clearest signs of the final awakening. You stop reacting and start choosing. The soul also activates a kind of inner perception that shows you when something is outside your spiritual path. And this perception is ruthless. You feel a tightness in your chest, a chill along your spine, an instant clarity. It's as if life itself is warning you. This does not match who you're becoming. This signal does not fail. Another deep sign is the emergence of an inner force pushing you forward even when you try to resist. It's as if a higher intelligence were conducting your process from the inside out. This force does not ask for your permission. It drags you because the final awakening isn't a choice. It's a calling. You also begin to notice that your soul can no longer tolerate superficiality. Empty conversations drain you. Shallow relationships exhaust you. Disposable entertainment bores you. Something inside you starts demanding depth, truth, presence. This hunger doesn't come from the mind. It comes from a soul starved for meaning. Another devastating symptom is the realization that you've lost interest in the old world. But it isn't disinterest. It's spiritual disconnection. The final awakening cuts the cables that once kept you tied to old patterns. Suddenly, you find yourself outside the internal system that held your entire life together, and this forces you to face yourself without anesthesia. The soul also begins to reveal internal memories that aren't memories, but sensations. Sensations that you knew certain things long before learning them. Sensations that you've been in this exact point before in another life, another cycle, another level. This silent recognition is one of the most dangerous signs. It marks the return of your ancestral consciousness. Another visceral sign is the sudden emotional cleansing. You feel like crying for no reason, being silent for no reason, pulling away for no reason. But everything has a reason. The old emotional field is being drained. The soul only keeps what can rise with the awakening. Everything else must die. And then comes the cutting lucidity that makes you see your own patterns with almost cruel clarity. Nothing is an excuse anymore. Nothing is a shadow. You see your internal structure with surgical precision, and this vision destroys your illusions with a force you cannot control. You also begin receiving intuitive downloads, insights that appear out of nowhere, but seem to come from above your mind. They are instructions, directions, warnings. The final awakening turns intuition into a command channel, and you feel this when you realize you can no longer ignore it. Another sign is the constant sensation that something is about to happen inside you, not outside. It's like an inner door vibrating, about to open. This expectation doesn't come from fear. It comes from recognition. Your soul knows the point that changes everything is approaching. The soul also rearranges your priorities in a radical way. What used to matter loses value. What used to be invisible becomes essential. It's an internal movement that reorganizes your external world. And you feel this deeply, because nothing fits the old mold anymore. Another sign is the rise of self-awareness. You begin observing your own thoughts as if you were watching from outside. You start noticing your reactions, your tensions, your impulses. This observation isn't mental, it's spiritual. It's the real consciousness taking control. The final awakening also dissolves the need for external validation. You begin to realize that nothing the world thinks about you matters. Your soul is expanding, and any human opinion becomes too small to influence your trajectory. This creates a brutal kind of freedom. And then comes the definitive sign, the awareness that you're being prepared to cross an invisible threshold. It's not imagination. It's a physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual sensation all at once. It's the final call before the leap. From this point on, everything intensifies. The soul starts pushing you into a territory you've never consciously entered, a territory where you can no longer hide from yourself, where every sensation is a clue, every intuition is a direction, every discomfort is a push. And if these signs are piling up inside you right now, ask yourself, why is your soul activating this process at this exact moment? Why are so many layers falling all at once? And the most unsettling question of all, what is it preparing to reveal to you that will change everything? And why do you feel like you're not ready, yet still can't stop moving forward?